featuring Will Gavin and Master Tess Fassian. And a squad of big-name contributors. The S Word from talkSPORT.
Well, a very good morning to our friends in the United States and good afternoon here in the UK. I'm Will Gavin, Master Tess Fatsian alongside me, and this is the S Word.
No medals today, no props today, nothing but just pure ball talk, baby.
Thankfully, no, we don't have to talk about Arsenal again until Friday. There we go. I've got to mention it in the first 10 seconds. What do I get for the over-under?
And it wasn't me.
That one.
It wasn't me. So we're talking America.
Listen, there's another European final before that Champions League final this weekend, and we'll start to build up to the Conference League final as Phil Kitchen-Melidis will join us. Massive Rayo Vallecano fan and loads to get into from La Liga. And you said it, America is coming to the forefront.
Yes, roster will be officially unveiled. 3 p.m. Eastern time. There has been some leaks, maybe some things.
Some leaks. We think we know the whole team top to bottom. It's worse than the England squad last week.
We'll see. We'll discuss if the vibes are good or not on the show.
And whether the vibes are good or not. When Mauricio Pochettino has apparently been breaking up with the players not coming to the squad via email. Have you ever been broken up to via text? I think via email might actually be worse.
It's not you, it's me.
We'll be discussing that coming up on the show. Plus, we're going to start doing some deep dives on some of the teams who have now hit the off-season, got to the beach, and we're starting off today with Newcastle. The brilliant Jack Cunningham will be joining the show. Plus, we'll be heading to Italy, to Spain. Loads as well. Packed show.
Mamma mia!
From the S Word. You actually just Mamma mia.
I did.
I'm Will Gavin, and it's all me. So when you said a time and a place for that drop, you meant literally right at the start of the show.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Oh, God. Yeah. It was chaos yesterday, it was mess, and it was a really fun show, and we're only going to get more of the same today. Listen, let's start off with this USMNT news, because we are the show, the S Word, if you've only just joined us for the first time, that breached the gap between the US soccer fan and the English football fan.
You're doing it well.
Just 16 days.
16 days.
6 hours, 57 minutes and 48 seconds. You can see it on the screen right there if you're watching us on YouTube.
That's
until
unbelievable.
The World Cup gets underway. And the USA, it's decision day. The roster is getting announced. The only place to catch all of the World Cup, every single game, all 104 of them, is right here on talkSPORT.
The greatest and most prestigious football tournament in the world.
We are inviting the world back.
And Brazil win the World Cup.
We're really excited to continue the preparations and get ready to welcome the world.
And so to the football. It's Iniesta to win the World Cup for Spain.
The magic matches and the fantastic football.
Germany in seventh heaven. Brazil in footballing hell.
And France are the World Cup winners in 2018.
Anyone could win this World Cup.
Mbappe has a hat-trick. He has his place in history.
To all the French team, we love you, and we're going to come back in 4 years.
Now, 25 yards out, right of centre, left-footed corner! Oh my goodness!
Harry Kane attacking it. Stoops, conquers, and England leads.
I think everything is possible, but we have to make it possible.
Well, it will be a fantastic event. It will be 104 Super Bowls in 1 month.
Scotland are going to the World Cup finals! Kenny McLean!
The real test now will be when we get there. How can we turn up?
Dust off your passports, pack your suitcases. England are on their way.
Biggest ever World Cup, just 16 days away, and it's decision day for USMNT as Mauricio Pochettino will announce the 26 players who will take part from a US perspective. Listen, this is always a huge deal. To make your national team, and we've poured over Brazil and Spain and massively over the England squad, Scotland over recent days, but there's something about playing in a home World Cup, about that opportunity to, in front of your own people, and Mexico will feel this and Canada will feel this as well. But for those USMNT players, what greater responsibility can there be, as well as honour, to represent your nation in front of your home fans at a time when US soccer really, really wants that boost. And yet, after 4 years ago, Greg Berhalter video called the players who didn't make the roster for the 2022 World Cup. The 55 has been cut down to 26 ahead of tonight's announcement, and breaking news coming through to us overnight that the USMNT players were broken up with, were told they weren't making the World Cup, were having their dreams shattered via email. Master, make it make sense.
I can't. There's nothing about the U.S. men's national team right now that I can make sense. And I've been the beacon of hope and optimism in the midst of...
As is your role as the American on the show, of course.
The brash American Yank, as I'm called.
If this was inside out, I would very much be pessimism and you'd be optimism, and that would be great.
But it's hard to be optimistic right now. It really is. I mean, sure, England had roster leaks, and so did the U.S. men's national team. They both had roster leaks. England's roster leaks happened because Thomas Tuchel single-handedly, Thomas Tuchel decided to call every single person individually to tell them his decision, and from there, thank them for their contributions, whether they made the team or not.
Let them know if they're on the reserve squad. Let them know if they're going to be heading out as part of the training camp. All of that stuff.
Absolutely class. And for it to leak because of that reason, it gave you a sense of nobility, values. It gave you a sense of intentionality. To tell these people, to tell the U.S. men's national team players who have fought tooth and nail to represent this country in the Gold Cup and Copa America and all these friendlies, wearing the stars and stripes, wearing the red, white, and blue, representing this country in the most important World Cup for our nation, to tell some of these people who have given everything they have to try and make this team and inform them that they're not making this roster via email, it just shows to me the lack of continuity and the lack of commitment, really, to this team, this squad, this roster that we've been going through this entire 4-year cycle.
And listen, what we've heard is that it's via email. We've not heard the exact, but you get the impression when you say via email that it's not even going to be a personalised email, that it's, let's set up a MailChimp list and just tick off the players.
It might have been through AI for all we know. They just change the name, but send the same heartfelt message.
BCC everyone onto the same email. Like, it's... Pochettino is a guy that I have defended to the hilt, left, right and centre. What he did at Tottenham, I think, is one of the best management jobs we've seen in this country over the last 15, 20 years, considering what he was working with and where he got them to. I really believed he'd kick on after that and become one of the world's best managers. Thought he could be a success at PSG. It didn't happen. When he took the USMNT job, there was part of me that raised my eyebrows and was wondering if this was the right move for him. When there's talk about him leaving after the summer, will he go into a big management job? There's some of these big club jobs coming up in Italy or here in the UK. Honestly, this is a disgrace. This, Pochettino has absolutely dropped a massive, massive ball on this one. And for it to be a moment of such pride for someone, for it to be a chance to really, even with Brazil, the way that they did it, where they had no previous squad leaks and they announced it all live, and you really felt for Joao Pedro, who sat around with his family, living that moment live. And it's like the NFL draft, where they're finding out where they're going live and in person. That felt heartbreaking to me. That felt too harsh. That felt like he should have known in advance. But I understand they did the TV spectacle of it. Hopefully Ancelotti rings him afterwards, explains it to him, they have that conversation. For this to come out via email, as we've heard... It beggars belief.
It doesn't sound like Mauricio is as invested as we would hope that he would be. I mean, he's taking all these trips around Europe. You're hearing every summer, you've heard these reports and rumors, whether they've been true or not, of his interest in all these other different managerial openings that have come across all throughout Europe. You can clearly see he's been trying to make his next move very apparent or transparent in some capacity, where there's still a job to be done right now. We need someone that's invested. We hoped and we thought that he would be invested in this gig. But there's nothing that is suggested to me that he has. If anything, he's more so taking a lot of backhanded compliments, talking about the talent. There's not a top 100 player on this roster. His interviews haven't been the most transparent, haven't been really, truly the most motivating as an American sports fan, hoping that, as poorly as the last 4 years have gone, that something could help us galvanize. Something could just help us get this over the line and make the most of this opportunity.
I mean, at the same time, what are you expecting, are you expecting Al Pacino in the locker room giving it that right? That's not the kind of guy Mauricio Pochettino necessarily
I understand.
Do you think America needs somebody to be the big rah-rah, I'm going to give an inspirational speech? Is that what you're looking for?
I mean, yeah, we need something. We need some sort of lifeline. If it's not through the coach, it needs to be through a player. And Christian Pulisic's not that. The only player that I feel like that's maybe a couple. Weston McKennie's one of them. Diego Luna has shown that he has the fire and the passion that we're looking for from the American national team. But there is it's lackluster leading up to this. And yes, the roster's going to be announced today, and I'll be happy for everyone that made it. Unfortunate for those that didn't. We'll see who eventually makes the final roster. But it's a very disappointing lead up to the World Cup. We're 16 days from now, as optimistic and hopeful as I've been each time where they screwed up with the Greg Berhalter situation. And maybe should have moved on from him earlier, but they didn't. And then they decided to move on from him eventually. And by that point, Jesse Marsh already went to Canada, and they opened up this pool, and you land someone like Pochettino.
In theory, a world-class manager.
It looked like a good idea.
Champions League final. He's, won trophies. He's a guy who, in theory, what a great get for the USA.
And it looked like a symbolization of, hey, we're investing big. This is a big moment. We're not going to let this pass by us. But time after time, it just feels like these moments haven't worked out. And switching from Ernie Stewart, who was the sporting director, he goes to PSV. Then you bring in Matt Crocker, who obviously was at England, was the sporting director and technical director for England, then went to Southampton, came in 2023 to the U.S., leaves 2 months before the World Cup to go join the Saudi Federation. The same guy who hired Pochettino, the same guy who hired Emma Hayes, 2 months before this World Cup that's supposed to be this culmination of all of this hard work and effort to help lift up U.S. soccer and bring it to the next level for the next generation. And he leaves before he could see the final product being made. Again, each time I've wanted to get excited, it feels like it has been, an own goal that has been produced by the U.S. that it just tampers expectations to the point where I don't know if they're going to win the group. I don't know where they're going to finish in this group. Against Paraguay, Australia, Turkey, I genuinely do not know where the U.S. national team sizes up in this group, regardless of who gets announced on his roster.
It's interesting you raise the name of Emma Hayes, because with both positions, they went out and found a splashy, big-name club manager to come and take an international job, to take a USMNT job, USWNT job, like to come out and make those big moves and those big splashes. And I don't think you could have seen, as much as Emma Hayes has done media, as much as she's still appeared left, right and centre, as much as she's still done her work outside of football, I don't think you could have seen much of a different approach from these two people. And
100%. Emma's been so invested. I would kill for Emma Hayes to take over the U.S. men's national team. With the job that she's already done so far with the U.S. women's national team, it has been unbelievable seeing the investment, the commitment that she's gotten from all the young stars that we're seeing coming up right now through the pipeline, but also the veterans that are on this team. At a point where obviously U.S. women's soccer has been the dominating force internationally, but the disappointment from the last World Cup, losing to Australia in penalties, Emma Hayes coming in and instilling that belief, instilling that hope, instilling that idea that, yes, we still are the best nation in the world. Obviously, the men's national team has a completely different spectrum in terms of where they come from, not having the same dominance and still growing in the ranks internationally. But we really felt like this moment would be a time in which people could look at us and be like, oh, no, they've come a long way since 1994. And I don't know if that is going to be what people walk away from this World Cup thinking. I think more so it's the U.S. still has a long way to go. And that has been my biggest fear about this World Cup. Because I wanted us to take this next step and elevate U.S. men's soccer to the next level. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Do you think it helps the situation when you've got, Nick Wright and Chris Broussard and guys on TV who don't normally cover soccer, who are making Christian Pulisic a top 10 most influential player on this whole World Cup, top 5, I think even, possibly, that actually, there's almost, I know I'm coming from the pessimistic English fan element of this, but is there has there been enough of a realism? Is there enough of if we win a round of 16 game, then we've had a successful World Cup? Is there enough of that view for American fans? Because we're talking the casual fans here, right?
Yes.
I think soccer fans understand where they are in the world, what their place is in the world, what would be success. But to grab that next generation, I know we've talked about them winning, I know we've talked about them going out and getting a victory in that first game and what a huge lift that would be, but has the approach outside of Pochettino's approach, which has been disgraceful, has the approach of the general wider media been good enough?
I've been disappointed. I thought a lot more of the mainstream media would have. I mean, we've known this World Cup is coming for a long time. Done the work, done the due diligence. Heck, I mean, I've done it, and this is coming from someone that used to cover the NFL and understand the significant opportunity that existed to really invest in the sport, a sport in which I would have loved to have covered early on in my career, and I did through internships and early on in my, but there just wasn't the opportunities to do so. And the simple fact that we knew this World Cup was coming, the opportunity to really sink your teeth in, really just embrace the game, embrace everything that comes with it, do all the analytical, do all the film reviews, all that stuff, ask all the experts, just ask questions to get a better understanding of the global perspective. I just haven't seen enough of that. And it's I say that, but also acknowledging the fact that now soccer is the third biggest sport in the United States. So even though there has been a disconnect from the media perspective in the U.S., the reality of where the sport is going, and you talk to, you see Gen Z and their obsession with Erling Haaland and Bukayo Saka and, a lot of them participating in the sport. There is a trend where maybe the Gen Xers, the baby boomers, and some of the millennials may not be on board with it, but you see the next generation and you see their love and their interest for this because of the accessibility of the sport that maybe others didn't have the opportunity to watch and grow up with, where now it's, they may feel it's too late, that they didn't get a chance to grow up, and maybe watch R9 and play at club football and play in the World Cup in the same way they got to watch, Tom Brady's entire career play out in the entire narrative. So it may be a bit of an overwhelming, daunting task for them, but I would have loved to have seen a bit more effort on that end. But that's why shows like this exist. It is for us to bridge that gap, and I'm thankful for talkSPORT for providing that opportunity to do so, because it is growing. It is growing, and the narrative is going to change, and the media coverage is going to change, and I think this World Cup will still have that impact to do so. But yes, there still is a long way to go there. And I'm still very hopeful, however this World Cup turns out, with the talent that's coming up through the pipeline, with the way Gen Z is embracing the sport, with the amount of record viewership that's growing in the sport, that the sport will continue to rise and elevate. And at a certain point, people will have that realization moment that U.S. soccer has arrived. Unfortunately, I don't know if the summer will be that day.
Oh, look, we're going to hear the full squad tonight at the announcement around 8 p.m. UK time. I think it was 3 p.m. Eastern. Was that right? I'm looking in the other room.
Yes, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. here.
So we'll know the squad tonight. We'll react to that tomorrow. Some leaks did come out overnight, but we'll react to those tomorrow and really get a fleshing out of it. We're going to be speaking to a number of journalists and really nail down into what this squad can achieve. But if
Diego Luna does not make this roster, we are riding. We are going to ride. If Diego Luna does not make this roster, we are going to ride. Period. That's all I have to say.
He clearly hasn't read the leaks. Listen, let's just before we move on though, Brad Friedel has spoken to talkSPORT ahead of this USMNT legend. Go and check out our YouTube channel at talkSPORT S Word. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us with the talkSPORT YouTube channel. You can find us on X and on Instagram as well, all at talkSPORT S Word. And on there we have just posted Brad Friedel. He was in the office this week and he gave us what he thought the USMNT starting 11 should be for the World Cup.
I think Matt Freese will be in goal. Anthony Robinson left back. Chris Richards will be one of the center backs. I would put Alex Freeman, who's at Villarreal, at right back. The other center back, for me, it could be a rotational system depending on who we're playing against. It could be Miles Robinson. It could be Mark McKenzie. It could be Tim Ream for some experience. For me, another one of our influential players is Tyler Adams. Yep. He's got to be fit. Weston McKennie has got to be fit. The other midfield spot with Johnny getting injured, because that would have been my pick as a 3. That's the one position for me that I really don't have solidified. Mauricio has chosen; he's gone away from Musa, and it looks like you have Roldan. Balogun I would start as the 9. Pulisic on one side, Weah on the other.
Interesting debate actually has formed on our X channel at talkSPORT S Word around who should be that starting striker. You heard there, Balogun was the call. I think that is the generally perceived as the correct call, but some interesting debate going on over there. So if you're here from the US and you want to get involved in that, head over to X at talkSPORT S Word. In the meantime, we've got a great show coming up for you today. We'll talk into Serie A in the second hour.
We started off so poorly though. I listen to him talk about that back line. I'm just like, oh my God.
We're going to go to Argentina. Lionel Messi How much is that injury this weekend going to impact his World Cup? We'll get the latest on that with Felipe joining the show. Newcastle later this hour as we start to deep dive the teams as they hit the off-season. But up next, we turn our attention from the US MNT to a little action south of here, where we are in London. Espanyol, Spain, La Liga, and a little bit of Rayo Vallecano going to a European final.
From kickoff to the full-time whistle, talkSPORT presents the S Word. Kickoff to the full-time whistle. Don't say the S word. Say the F word. Football. The S word from talkSPORT.
That also.
Calm down. Chill out. Be chill. Calm.
I'm all right.
You are watching the S Word from talkSPORT. I'm Will Gavin. Master Tesfatian alongside me. The show that American soccer fans deserve ahead of the biggest World Cup of all time. Get in touch with us across all of the social media channels at talkSPORT S Word on Instagram, on X, and on YouTube. Master is just collecting his thoughts after we found out that Mauricio Pochettino just told his players they weren't going to make the World Cup via email ahead of this afternoon's announcement, 3 p.m. at Eastern. Ben gets in touch and says that's American capitalism. I don't know why it's capitalism specifically for you.
Is it?
Dan suggests American fans need a trip to Millwall away. I don't know what he's expecting from that trip, but
maybe he's just find some culture. I
don't know. Sorry, our studio is only about 10 minutes from there. Do you want to go find out what culture is around the new den?
I mean, we can go catch West Ham Millwall
next season. Yeah, baby. We had some
real quick. Yeah. Quick correction. I said Australia. I meant to say Sweden. U.S. women's national team losing in the World Cup in penalties. My bad on the error, but the fact still remains. Emma Hayes has been a godsend. So thank you, Emma. And I would love her to coach the U.S. men's national team.
Okay.
That's it.
It's a beautiful thing. We're going to be talking a little bit on the Spanish side of things coming up, because we do have a Conference League final, which you were digging me out for earlier when we were in the canteen.
The Conference League matters to me. I just don't know how much it matters to people in England. It's a European trophy, and people get excited about that reality, and they'll parade around and be excited. But we had a West Ham fan on here last week that would trade that trophy for Upton Park. And I'm sorry, I don't know what other domestic league would feel the same way.
The problem with the West Ham fan is, right,
There's
the West Ham fans in general. The problem is that what they're equating there is they're equating the absolute, that's the first time I've nearly sworn on air. The absolute mess that is West Ham's ownership, the treatment of the club, the way they've built it, they're conflating it with the stadium. If they had moved to that new stadium and they'd actually invested in the team properly and they'd made good managerial choices and they'd won that European trophy and pushed on and were finishing top half of the table, challenging teams like, our football editor, I came into the office today, and because I work across talkSPORT 2 as well as here on the S Word, he was like, oh, you must be happy with the European qualifiers. Like, he was almost joking with me, because obviously when Chelsea and Newcastle and those kind of teams are in the Europa League or even the Conference League, we put those games on, they get very good numbers. You're not necessarily going to get the same good numbers from your Bournemouths, your Sunderlands, your teams like that. And I was like, I don't care. The footballing stories are so good with those teams there. But West Ham, I think rightfully should feel like they could be a club who could be competing at the level of those teams, and they've been so poorly run they haven't been. But there's this mental thing with the West Ham fans of that's the fault of them for moving stadium, rather than our ownership is an absolute mess.
Yeah.
Moving stadium was part of what makes them a mess, but just going back to Upton Park, if it was still there, by the way, it's not. But if they move back to Upton Park, it isn't going to fix your problems. David Sullivan's not going to suddenly have gone away. You're not going to suddenly be remaining in the Premier League.
That's my point. There's more romanticism to a stadium that no longer exists than there is to what arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest trophy in West Ham's history, winning a European title. You think Chelsea fans still care about that Conference League trophy? They only love it because they did, the cycle of European trophies. The significance of this trophy for England compared to other countries and other domestic leagues, it's not even comparable. And I think for Rayo Vallecano being in this position in a Conference League title, it means the world to them.
I think it means the world to Crystal Palace as well. You are conflating what it means to Crystal Palace with what it means to the wider Premier League and English football fan. I think Crystal Palace fans could not be more excited about this, and it's not just, oh, it's European. Like, I think this really means something to them.
What does it mean more than them winning the FA Cup title?
But that's a harsh comparison to make, because I think there are people for whom only the Champions League or the Premier League would mean more than the FA Cup. They have it as their third most important one. They wouldn't have the Europa League higher than it necessarily.
You're dodging the question.
Because the FA Cup... No, I'm not. I'm literally answering the question you just asked me. The FA Cup is a thing that you've grown up with. It's a thing that's existed for over 100 years. The oldest cup competition in the world. I absolutely understand if a fan base treats that with a loftier thing than a competition that's only existed for 4 or 5 years. But I'm just saying that you are saying that, Rayo Vallecano fans... If Rayo Vallecano fans won... the Spanish, what's the
Copa del Rey.
Copa del Rey, that's it.
Thankfully, we can ask one.
Okay, let's get to Phil.
Come on.
Because we're just going to go around in circles here because you're wrong. Phil Kitchen-Melidis, the brilliant Phil Kitchen-Melidis joins us. La Liga commentator, Spanish football expert.
He's got the Rayo hat. Come
huge Rayo Vallecano fan, season ticket holder. Does this mean more to Vallecano fans than it does to Palace fans?
I mean, Palace did win the FA Cup, and then they won the Community Shield, and Rayo have never, ever, ever been in a final, anywhere near a final ever. So, but the thing is, like I've been trying to explain to people, Rayo, they've won already. Like, getting into this final, it actually doesn't matter if they win or not. It genuinely doesn't matter. Like, they would love to. It would be fantastic, and they would celebrate it. Don't get me wrong. But there's already a celebration of getting to this final because it's so unexpected. It's so far away from anybody's kind of reality of what it is to be a Rayo fan on a day-to-day basis, that there is this feeling like, wow, we're here, we're in a final, let's just enjoy it. It kind of doesn't matter if we win. And obviously Palace, They were massive underdogs in that FA Cup final and they won. I think that probably makes it a bit more special than this European final where they are massive favourites. And if they win, it'll be great for them. But I think that first FA Cup final, just to go back to what you were saying about, if it's more important than the FA Cup for Palace, I think that FA Cup for Palace, their first ever trophy, to do it the way that they did it, that will be very, very difficult to be topped. So yeah, this is huge for Rio. It's huge for Palace.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you.
What I love is the American guy next to me saying, thank you, Phil. When you said about like they've already won by being there, he smiled and nodded along next to me. That's not the American way. The Americans should be going, hey, show me a runner-up and all I'm seeing is first loser. Like, that's surely their approach.
The Cinderella story, though, of this. Like, Phil, for those that aren't aware, you have lived and breathed and died Rayo Vallecano. Tell us why this is such a great underdog story and the best underdog story in Europe.
Because they are just a shambles of a club administratively. Like they shouldn't even be in La Liga. I can just go through the list of things. I was at the stadium this morning buying this very lovely hat, and there's people queuing up to try and buy tickets to go and watch the game on the big screens that they're putting up there, because you have to queue because they don't have online ticket sales. I think they're the only professional side in Europe. I've bought a ticket online to see a second division team in Greece play, and you can't buy online to watch Rayo Vallecano. Their stadium is falling apart. It's filthy. There's often no hot running water. The training ground is in just an abysmal state. The facilities are so bad they had to use other teams' facilities twice this season. Their starting 11 probably cost about half of what Jeremy Pino cost to Palace. This is not a team that should be competing for anything apart from narrowly avoiding relegation from La Liga. So it is a fairy tale story. It's a Netflix series, and it's what captured a lot of people's imaginations because it is so unlikely.
So that's why it's a great story. How have they done it then to go from that to being in a European final?
They've got a very good manager in Inigo Perez, the second youngest manager in the in La Liga, who's going to go and be Villarreal's manager next season. So we're going to go and see him in the Champions League. He is just absolutely obsessed, kind of in the sort of the Unai Emery mold in terms of sort of tactical. How can I put this in English? Like, he's always on the players, always talking to them, always making sure that they know everything that they're supposed to do, but in a kind of like a friendly way. Like, the players absolutely love him, whereas Unai Emery kind of starts to get on people's nerves after a couple of years. But Inigo Perez is wildly loved by these players. They've got some good players in there as well. And they've got some players who have just had the best season of their careers. You might remember, gosh, your mind's black. Florian Lejeune used to play for Newcastle, big French centre-back. Didn't, pull up too many trees at Newcastle. He's had an unbelievable season. I think he's been one of the best centre-backs in La Liga. They've got a sort of bald little number 10 called Issy Palazón, who's just a mercurial, gifted player. Alvaro Garcia on one wing, Jorge de Frutos on another, and just a huge Brazilian lump at number 9 in Alamao, who's not very good at scoring goals, but absolutely elite at running into people. I mean, it's just they're a very good team, a very good unit. They have the most high-intensity sprints of any team in La Liga this season, so they are kind of on you. And yeah, they've overachieved wildly.
The most impressive part, I feel like, with Rayo Vallecano making it to the final, but also playing on Thursdays and Sundays with the restrictions we've seen in La Liga and the difficulty of registering players because of the financial implications, with half the table being in a relegation battle and them still somehow finishing 8th. Like, how remarkable is that to accomplish that? Even though obviously it's not a European spot, but to avoid being in that relegation battle that half the league was in.
It was 1 point off a European spot. They were very, very close to getting to Europe again. 8th is their best ever finish in La Liga, equaling what they did last season and in 2013. They've never finished higher than 8th, and they've got to European final as well this season. I genuinely thought they would go down this season. I thought Europe would take it out of them. Didn't think they'd be anywhere near the final. Thought it'd be too tiring. Maybe get to the quarters, get knocked out, and probably go down. I mean, maybe this is just my negative fan view, but maybe the Europa League could do that if they win next season. But yeah, it's been extraordinary. They don't have a particularly big squad. They don't have a particularly talented or deep squad, and yet the managers managed to get the best out of every single one of these players. This is a team, by the way, that creates a lot of chances and does not take them. I think in terms of goals scored compared to their XG, they're underperforming in La Liga. This is by more than anyone else. So they're actually good at creating and very bad at scoring. And I was talking to a Palace fan yesterday, and he said, "Oh, that sounds like us." And there's actually quite a lot of similarities between Palace and Rayo in terms of fan culture and identity with the local area as well. And I think the fans in Leipzig, where I'm headed tomorrow, are actually going to get on pretty well because they realise that there is quite a common identity.
Will they turn up in their absolute numbers? Are we going to see an absolute party in Leipzig over the next couple of days?
For a Rayo fan, there's about 15,000 going, I think.
I mean, still, it's enough to bring a city to life.
Yeah. I mean, they've travelled all over Europe as well. You know, this is a small club from working class part of town. You know, people don't necessarily have loads of money to go off on European jolly ups, but they've been able to maybe support the team in Strasbourg, in Athens. They've been to Poland. They've been all over. And yeah, 15,000. The club only has 12,000 season ticket holders, so 15,000 are probably going out there. Lots of different flights. People are driving. People are taking caravans. People are flying to Czech Republic and getting their way in there. So lots of different flight combinations, and they're making their way there because they know this is never going to happen again. This is literally never going to happen again. They're never going to be in another European final. I'm sticking my neck on the line and saying that, but I don't think it's too much of an outrageous suggestion. So you've got to be there. You've got to find a way to be there because it's just historic.
See, it means more to them. I've been arguing this all week. I feel like English teams, whether it's Chelsea, West Ham, I don't. The Conference League, in terms of the financial disparities of qualifying for a third.
I think comparing those two clubs is madness. Chelsea winning the Conference League was a stain on the competition and a joke, and I do think there is a conversation to be had about qualification for that competition if you've been in the Champions League in the last 5 years or 3 years, however you want to do it. There has to be a way to guard against a team like that having one bad year.
But you can say about the entire Premier League, though. You can say about the democratization.
It's unfair on West Ham, on Crystal Palace, on Villa winning the Europa League last week. This has been an ongoing conversation about this recent Premier League dominance, particularly in those second two tiers, Phil. How does the rest of Europe view that? Because certainly there's a disparate viewpoint here in the studio.
Rest of Europe views England as the money bags. You know, it's very difficult to compete against the Premier League. The bottom team in La Liga in the Premier League can come and buy the best player from any team in La Liga, bar Real Madrid, Barcelona, and maybe Atletico as well. Anyone else, you know, Wolves have probably got enough money to go and buy the best player from Villarreal. That's just how it is. So the Premier League is viewed as this huge, gargantuan, money-filled behemoth that we can't really compete against, and yet, you know, La Liga sides do tend to compete in Europe and get to finals and come close as well. You know, in that Conference League final last season, Betis were 1-0 up at halftime against Chelsea. It was looking pretty good, and then obviously Chelsea managed to turn it around. So the feeling is that we'll try and compete, but it's pretty difficult to compete against such a rich league.
I do want to touch on the rest of La Liga, because even though obviously the title had been decided and Real Madrid, we've talked about them ad nauseum, but I want to focus on the relegation battle. And it feels like it's like a crazy final lap of a ridiculous race every single year now for the last couple of years. Is this a good thing for La Liga, considering it kind of ties back into some of these financial restrictions these clubs are facing? Or is it a bad thing, considering maybe it's a suggestion of the overall health of the league? How do you view the relegation battle every season coming down with half the league trying to stave off relegation?
Well, it's exciting, Master, isn't it? You know, exactly. Going into the final day of the season. But to be fair, just let me caveat what you're saying. This season was particularly close. I mean, going into the last season with 6 teams, I think that can get relegated. That isn't actually normal. Usually, you've got maybe 2 or 3 that can get relegated. But this was particularly close because so many teams were just pulling out results out of the bag in the last stretch, and they were actually helped, by the way, with those teams. Quite a few teams they played against: Atletico Madrid, who were resting players for the Champions League; Barcelona, who had already won the league; or other teams that weren't necessarily playing for much. Alaves beat Barcelona, who were already champions, and literally drunk still from the celebrations. They hadn't beaten Barcelona for 25 years. Elche beat Atletico Madrid. Sevilla beat Atletico Madrid. Atleti were playing their under 19s, before the Champions League semi-final. So those kind of things altered it a little bit, and we got results that we might not have seen otherwise. But I think it's exciting. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, or necessarily speaks ill of La Liga or anything like that.
We do something always where we tee up people. We need the fan rallying cry.
You're right.
We had one.
Can we full screen, Phil? We need
tee them up.
Given
we're going back to Rayo.
Yeah. So we've had Stu Holden's done this, and Bolton got promoted. The man next to me did this, and Arsenal won the Premier League. We're not going to let him do it again on Friday because we don't want to break our streak.
Terrified.
Send a message out to Rayo Vallecano ahead of this European final. Why they should do it for the fans, what it means for everyone. Just give us that rally.
Give us our rallying cry, baby,
that we need for Vallecano to go and beat Palace.
Rayo Vallecano, the barrio, the neighborhood of Vallecas, is already so proud of what you've achieved. You've wildly overachieved. Nobody thought we would be anywhere near this final, and yet here we are, one step away from glory, from silverware for the first time in Rayo's 100-year history. You're already champions to the fans. You've already made us so happy and so proud, but we believe that you can win. We believe that you can control this game, dominate Crystal Palace, and bring back some silverware. So, vamos Rayo!
Yeah, come on.
Absolutely beautiful stuff, Phil. We love you greatly. Thank you so much for joining the show. Best of luck this week.
Rooting for you, man. Rooting for you.
Vamos.
What a man. What a man. Phil Kitchamleadis joining us, the excellent La Liga broadcaster, commentator, and Rayo Vallecano fan. What a story it is, and what a final it promises to be live on talkSPORT. Up next, we'll continue our brand new, almost off-season deep dives. And what an off-season this is for Newcastle United. What a huge next 3 months they have ahead of them. Jack Cunningham from Inside the Toon joins us in the studio next.
Big name reaction from both sides of the pond. The S Word from talkSPORT. talkSPORT presents The S Word. Get your full-on football fix from across the football galaxy. The S Word from talkSPORT.
You're back with the S Word on talkSPORT. Already we've covered Rav. Already we've talked about the US MNT. You can scroll back in the live stream on YouTube to watch Master getting some pretty heated takes on the performance and behaviour of Mauricio Pochettino. It's fair to say.
Don't remind me.
Not angry, just disappointed.
Yes.
Emails as a way to tell players they're not going to make it into the squad.
Embarrassing.
Lots more reaction to that tomorrow as the squad is
disgraceful, as you guys always
later
say.
Today. It's a
disgrace.
An absolute disgrace.
Exactly. That's a fact. But we want to continue our off-season look. Oh, we still got to talk Serie A coming up in the show.
Yes, we do.
We're going to
Marco
get to Argentina.
Yes.
Lionel Messi
Felipe
injured.
Cardenas. Big show.
In MLS. But right now, we need to address the situation going up in the Northeast, because we are going to be starting our deep dive looks in some of the teams that we've not referenced in the off-season, some of the teams that, you know, we talk West Ham, we talk Tottenham, we talked about those teams qualifying for Europe. But what about those teams who had a disappointing year? Certainly Chelsea, we're going to be getting into. They've got a new manager coming in. What of Newcastle United? I'm delighted to say that from the brilliant Inside the Toon, Jack Cunningham now joins the show. Jack, how are you,
Good
brother?
afternoon. How are you doing, lads?
Yeah, so
Thank you for...
It was my idea to clap guests into the show, and I keep forgetting to do it.
Thankfully, Gabs has a clap track behind me, so I'm not clapping alone, looking like an idiot.
It's about me.
I'm representing
America. Hey, I love it. Stars and stripes, baby. Yeah. I love to see it.
Listen, they released that table of for the 17 teams who crossed the Premier League across the two seasons, the difference of the points differential from last year. And unsurprisingly, Wolves, Forest, those teams struggling for relegation were down at the bottom end. Liverpool, 24 less points than last season, going from champions to where they did. But Newcastle, right in that mix, 17 less points than last season. You go from European, pushing for Europe to, at one point, you all felt like Inside the Toon fighting relegation. Now you've had a couple of days to step back, take a breath. Mm-hmm. How are we feeling?
Yeah, I think it was an absolutely pathetic season, to be brutally honest. The way I see it is actually a massive season of missed opportunities. When you look at the points that got into Europe, Sunderland, for example, finished 5 points ahead of Newcastle. That's the 2 derby wins. That is the 2 derby wins. You can put it as simply as that. And ultimately, in the end, Newcastle dropped 27 points from winning positions. 27 points from winning positions, and only took 3 from losing positions. So
why was that?
Well, it's clear that the mentality, I think that shows a weak mentality. I think that shows that, one, you take the lead and then you can't hold on to it. But then if you go behind, it's just like, that's it. We can't do anything. We can't do anything. And it was a season of everything went wrong, from a lot of players not performing, but also Eddie Howe absolutely didn't deliver at the level that we've seen him do before. And it seemed like by the end he totally ran out of ideas. I mean, that game on Fulham, it's a dead rubber, but he's playing a back 5 at one point. Then we've got Chow at right back, we've got Visser in midfield. It was just an absolute mess, to be brutally honest. And it feels like that was a microcosm of the season, in the sense of, we've kind of got away with it, really, because of how bad Spurs have been and other things. We should have had a lot more criticism than we actually got. We've 17 defeats this season. 17 defeats. Same as Spurs. And a lot of them were in the second half of the season, when it seemed like basically we lost almost every single game that I can think of. And the performances became so bad that it just felt as if most people were just like, can we just end this season? But I don't think it's just an easy fix as like, the next year we'll go again. That pressure is going to be well on Eddie Howe. He's used up the goodwill now in a lot of fans' views, and a lot of fans want him to go anyway.
I was going to say, were you surprised?
Yeah.
Were you surprised he's still in charge of the club?
I think I was when after Dave Hopkinson said, right, we need to have a good end of the season, and we'd lost 4 in a row after going out of the Champions League. I was kind of thinking, well, this is not a good end to the season. And in the end, when we went back to 1 game a week, we only won twice. And that's meant to be Eddie Howe's bread and butter, Monday to Thursday on the training fields, drilling the players, and because that's when the seasons we've done the best in terms of where we finished, and the seasons where we haven't had European football.
Days, and it takes you back to,
of course it does.
That's the kind of, in theory, great coach, a guy who raises the level of players, a guy that turns average players into good players and good players into great players. Exactly. That was everything we'd heard about Eddie Howe. You did come into the season in the turmoil of everything that happened with Isak last summer, him ending up moving at the 11th hour, making signings that didn't work out.
Yeah, no, we've got a spawner right now, but Ross Wilson didn't have last summer. Yeah, I know. No, that was a total mess of a summer. Of course it was. But Bournemouth lost 4 of their back 5. You know, they lost their goalkeeper, they lost everyone bar Adam Smith, basically, at right back. Look how well they did. They also lost Semenyo as well. The players who came in, okay, Vista has not worked at all. Arguably one of the worst players I've seen wear the number 9 shirt, to be brutally honest, as of now. Alanga,
it's not that has not worked. Any history in Newcastle.
No, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
No notable players have worn that before.
Exactly. And Alanga, that hasn't worked either. But Waldemar, I see a player there. I think he was horribly misused when he was getting played on the left-hand side of midfield.
Now he's moved into that 10.
And now he's looked much better in the 10.
Looks so much better.
Much better in the 10. And we were calling for it all season. We're like, look, you can tell that is where his position is. Get players around him. He'll start being like, play people in. He might not score 20 goals, but I think he'll be involved in a lot of goals over the course of a season. Ramsey, I really like as a player. Again, he's probably not played as much as would have wanted to. And then Chow somehow made 50 appearances in his first season for Newcastle. He got overplayed by the end, but that was because of Fabian Schär's injury. I think more of a case with the summer is the fact that Visser and Waldemar were not, obviously, his top targets. Of course they weren't. But once they're there, you've got to find a way to make them work. You know, Waldemar is Newcastle's record signing. And the way he started up front, he scored a few goals, but I still felt he was always isolated. It's almost like it's not part of the patterns of play. So like Dan Burn was speaking about it earlier in the season, where he said Newcastle got very defined patterns of play, so he kind of knows where the ball's going to be 3 passes beforehand. And it was because Waldemar is not standing up front like Isak and he's dropping in deep. It was like they just ignored him. And it kind of felt like they couldn't be free. They couldn't adapt to this new player. And then in the end, it just felt like a lot of games we just found out. I mean, if we played against a team who sat in, that was it. I mean, we just passed it around forever. Swung it. I think we put more opening crosses in than anyone else this season. And we scored from like 3 or 4.
But I mean, it's understandable not to have that chemistry because you didn't have a summer, you didn't have a preseason camp. Everything was going on with Isak. Eddie Howe looked like he wanted to try and do everything he can to keep Isak. From all the reports, it sounded like the locker room was fractured amongst the players. So it just didn't sound like a healthy environment to get off to a good start and perform.
No, I understand, but look, they knew Isak wanted to go. That, you know, ultimately, what should have happened really, it was when Ekitike became available. Newcastle put a bid in for Ekitike. You know, Ekitike by all accounts was ready to join Newcastle, but then we weren't willing to let Isak go to Liverpool. So obviously Liverpool came in, took Ekitike, and then they got Isak as well. So we end up missing out on our top target there. But I think that it's too fair to Eddie Howe and the players to just say, because the summer was bad, that whitewashes the season. You can't just whitewash a season. Newcastle have become a side who, under Eddie Howe, in the 3 full seasons he had, to finish no lower than 7th. So, despite the fact Isak left, I think a lot of us were still feeling pretty confident at the start of the year. Thought we're going to give the Champions League a go because the rest of the squad was quite deep in a lot of positions. Mm-hmm. But in the end, it has just turned into a total mess. And as I said, a lot of the fans have turned on Eddie Howe. And I think losing the 2 derbies is, of course, going to not be
compound everything.
Yeah, because the thing is, the time when Derby's so important, but Newcastle and Sunderland back when they won 6 in a row were very similar clubs in the sense of same money, both battling relegation usually. It just seemed like Sunderland wanted it more in those games. And for Newcastle to have then won a trophy, got in the Champions League, be one of the richest clubs in the world, I know they can't spend it, but still, the derbies were meant to be a bit different. But in the end, that first one at Stadium of Light, no one felt confident going into that because obviously Sunderland had a great start of the season. And then the second one, we scored first. Sunderland had a weak team out, and it felt like they were almost just not wanting to get beat for the first half an hour. And then they realised, oh, hang on, these aren't actually very good. We can win this. And they won it again.
So they won it late. Yeah, that was not
they won it again.
Does it make the season even more disappointing when you see Sunderland first season making it to Europe? And I mean, how was that final day for you? I'm sure you felt a sigh of relief with Newcastle, but then you're looking across town, and how does that summarize?
Well, you know, hats off to Sunderland. I think they've done really well, but I think it's the points difference that is so strange. Like Newcastle and Sunderland won the same amount of games, but in the end they finished 7th and got Europa League football, and Newcastle haven't, and that's why I look back at this season and just think it's such a missed
you can point
opportunity.
You can point that across the board, right? Brentford with the 4 draws there.
Yeah, of course.
Chelsea, what they needed 6 points from their last 9 games.
I feel like they just threw it, to be honest.
They took 4 like that. Yeah. There seems to be so many teams that's true of this year, and it's a much more condensed Premier League than it has been in a long time. You know, actually needing 40 points to survive for the first time in
a while.
I think it was 12 years since you've needed that. That should suggest, however, that there is plenty of room for teams to come out of that mire and ascend up. What's going to make that team Newcastle?
Yeah, well, I think the summer needs to be massive. I think we're at a point where this squad is just at the end of its cycle. It's just over. Like, a lot of these players have stayed for probably too long in the end. And it's not a case of, like, get out my club, I hate you. It's like, thank you very much for what you've done. A lot of them are legends. They were part of the team that won the Carabao Cup. But you've got to be ruthless. Eddie Howe's at the point now where he actually gets a chance to refresh his squad. Not many managers even get the chance to do that anymore, but he has a chance to refresh his squad. But the likes of Nick Pope this season, as much as again, I blame Howe and what have you. If we had a better goalkeeper this season, Newcastle would have probably finished in the European places. The goalkeeper situation, we have two of the worst goalkeepers in the Premier League in Pope and Ramsdale. When you look at other goalkeepers, they're so much better than Pope and Ramsdale. Pope's fall off has been dramatic. He's not even a good shot stopper anymore, and he's never been good with his feet. So there's him. Obviously, Jacob Murphy, Joe Willock, all like very loyal players who've done very well and have elevated their levels to really high. But now it's sort of catching up with them, and they've been kept too long, and now you're in a position where realistically you need 11 or 12 to probably leave. But are you going to get that? Is Howe going to be ruthless enough to do that? I'm not sure.
But some of them just recently just got it. Anthony Gordon, Sandro Tonali. I mean, those are two big key pieces that were brought in to bolster the team and the roster as you guys qualified for European competitions and Champions League, and they could be out the door.
Gordon's gone. Gordon's gone.
There's no chance you're keeping hold of Anthony.
Gordon's gone. Though he hasn't played the last 4 games,
but it sounds
he's
like
been fully fit.
Sounds like the money, like as much as he seems to have agreed a deal, the money on the table is not meeting anywhere in the middle. And Newcastle, after what happened last summer, after what happened with Ekitike, after what happened with Isak, after they let that whole summer get away from them, are they just going to have to suck it up and say, we're not going to get the 90, we're not going to get the 100, we're going to have to take the 75 or the 80 and accept it, because otherwise we're putting ourselves behind the 8 ball?
No, it's a good question, Will, and I think we're at the position where 75, but I think it'll be less than that. And to be honest, I think, but you know what? And a lot of Newcastle fans be absolutely fine with it. Gordon is a player who massively divides opinion. If you look at the stats this season, 17 goals. Wow, what a season. Most of them are penalties. 4 of them were against Karabakh in the Champions League. In the games where we've needed him, he hasn't really shown up, to be brutally honest. There was Premier League games. He's the star. Once Isak leaves, he's the star player in the forward line. And in those games where we have dropped points to teams that we probably shouldn't have done if we're going to be the team that we want to be, he has not shown up. And ultimately, he's a player who a lot of fans are now quite happy to see go. I think it's a bit harsh with end in the sense he hasn't got any game time. It would have been nice maybe for him to get to say he's goodbye like Trippier did. But ultimately, I think Gordon is a player most Newcastle fans are fine with Gordon.
Real quick, 20 seconds. Is Tonali gone?
No, I think Tonali will stay. Man
United's knocking on the door.
Come up with the money. There's plenty of teams. Have you got the money for him? I don't know.
They're also bringing in Edison already. They're also trying to get Elliot Anderson. They're also trying to
We've heard these rumors for quite some time about Tonali.
Oh no, I think his agent's the worst. Like, get rid of him. He's an awful bloke. Him. But I think that Tonali, I'm more leaning towards him staying just because I'm not sure I'll pay the money for him. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant stuff from you again.
No worries,
always.
thank you.
Where can people find more of your brilliant work?
Well, Inside the Toon, obviously. Well, that is finished for the season now, but that's on the talkSPORT Newcastle YouTube channel, and then also on Instagram and Twitter as well. So
beautiful. You're a great man. Jack Cunningham,
thank you very much.
In the studio on the S Word here from talkSPORT. One of the most fascinating summers coming up for Newcastle for a number of those teams, and we'll deep dive them, and not just from the Premier League, but across Europe as well. Some fascinating news coming out of Marca today after Atleti dropped from 3rd to 4th in the table on the final day of the season. Julian Alvarez has told them he wants out, and apparently Barcelona is his landing spot.
They don't have no money.
If Barcelona is the landing spot,
they don't have no money.
Allow me to finish my thought. If Barcelona becomes the landing spot, what about Marcus Rashford? Could be Newcastle. Just saying. Feels like a Premier League return could be on the cards. Maybe we'll talk about that in the next hour. Just throwing it out there. This is the S Word from talkSPORT. We're going to talk Serie A up next.
From the touchline to the terraces, talkSPORT presents the S Word. S Word, featuring Will Gavin and Master Tess Fassian. And a squad of big-name contributors. The S Word from talkSPORT.
You're watching the S Word from talkSPORT, and the man next to me has just thrown out one of the most ludicrous transfer takes that I have heard in a very long time. And I've just said to him, we've got to talk about that on air. And he's gone, after the Champions League final.
Let's let this percolate. Let's let it. It's still in the oven.
Here's the situation.
It's still in the oven.
If, Master Tesfazian, Arsenal win the Champions League final, you're going to bowl in here and you're going to repeat what you've just repeated to me off air as boldly and as full-chested as you possibly can. If, and it's not very small, not very big if, maybe even when you lose the Champions League final, so I'm going to come in and repeat what you said and let the laughter track be played from the other room. How about that?
I think what I'm saying will make more sense if they lose, but also makes sense if they win.
Wow, okay. You think you can pry him away? You think you can get him?
On the S Word. But for right now,
I know the club's in a shambles, but oh my God. It's our little tease for next week. It's going to be a good one, trust me. I'm not going to. We shouldn't even tell them. They might have been listening on pre-fade, but. So creepy, so weird. We've got a great hour coming up this hour. From SofaScore, Ivan Beslic is going to be joining us. We're going to get a bit nerdy, and I'm excited about that, as always. Coming from a man who sat next to me, has just shown me Julian Alvarez's heat map, as if, like, he's not also a nerd and just loves to point at me and tell me that I am. We'll also have Felipe Cardenas joining us after Lionel Messi's injury in MLS this past weekend throws his World Cup health into doubt. We'll talk a little bit of Colombia and Argentina with him as well. But first, after we touched on it briefly yesterday, after we alluded to what turned out to be a phenomenal final day of a fascinating Serie A season with two of the biggest clubs in Italy dropping out of the Champions League places, being replaced by, of course, more than anything, the huge story of Como. I'm delighted to say that joining us is the CBS Serie A correspondent, the great Marco Messina. Marco, how are you doing, brother?
Yeah! What's up, boys? What an intro. I'm dying to know what Master T's prediction is now. I'm going to DM you, Marco. Baited.
I'm going to DM you. Yeah, there you go. We did our job.
Tune in next Tuesday.
Also, the room just got a lot better looking. Let's be honest, man. Marco. What a guy.
That's why they pay him the big bucks on CBS.
Hey, I gotta come talk to you guys more often. These are nice compliments.
Listen, we mentioned yesterday we talked about the final day shocks and the kind of huge moves, particularly in Milan, particularly with Napoli as well. Let's start off with Milan. It's now going to be they need a new manager. They are going to be out of Champions League football. This was the minimum expectation going into this season, and they've not managed to meet it.
It's an absolute disaster. The whole idea, Milan missed all of European football the year before. So what did they say? Let's go back to the drawing board. Forget about this attacking football, these great ideas. We need somebody that's pragmatic. We need somebody that has been in Serie A that will guarantee us to get Champions League football. They went with Max Allegri. Max Allegri all year long ran away from the idea of competing for the Scudetto, which personally, I thought they could have mimicked what Napoli did the year before without European football all week to prepare for one game that they could compete. He said, no, we need to be in fourth place. We need to be in Champions League football. And on the final match day of Serie A, they only needed a tie at home against Cagliari, who Cagliari were technically on paper playing for nothing, just playing for pride, and they lose at home. If they would have scored the second goal, they would have had the tiebreaker over Como, and then that fantastic story of Como being in the Champions League would have been no longer, and they would have achieved their goal. They did not, and I give credit for Milan, the above, for getting rid of everyone from the start. Allegri is gone, and they actually referenced in their statement as to why. He says, we went from a concrete chance of competing for a title to not even making Champions League football. And I will say, even if they did make top four, even if they did achieve their goal according to Allegri, I think they probably had to make the same move. I don't know where this team was going, playing the football that Allegri is bringing to this squad.
So is this rock bottom then for Milan? I mean, even though they're in Europa League, considering they weren't in European football this season, cleaning house like this, is this finally, have we reached the bottom point of Milan that now hopefully they can build up? Are you not as optimistic that maybe the signings and decisions they still have to make right now, they'll make the right decisions this summer?
Well, if you think about the year before where they were out of Europe altogether, that probably would have been the quote-unquote rock bottom. But they bring in a new sporting director, and you think that he will have his time to make signings and make changes. And they spent a lot of money. They spent money on players that did not play their part, that did not bring enough value to the team. Yashadi, 40 million. Nkunku, 45 million. Estupinian was brought in, and then someone from the youth team, this kid Bartesaghi, ends up taking his spot and being a better player. So they made mistakes back to back. I do think, though, it's weird to be optimistic in this moment because everything is pointing towards negativity. But as I said, if they would have gotten into a Champions League spot, I think it almost would have masked some of the issues. We've already seen Milan go into Champions League football being knocked out in bad stages prior to this as well. I don't think you could have played this football going into Champions League, so maybe they need this reset. Maybe they need to go back to the drawing room and find someone who's going to build up a project. Build up a project similar to what Fabregas has done at Como. It might not be immediate. It might not be this quick fix, this in 1 year, we're going to get you the results. But at least you could see the building blocks. With Allegri and with this Milan team, they regressed. They consistently got worse. So I want to see a proper project that goes with maybe a younger coach. Maybe it's not the biggest name in the world, but it could actually lay the building blocks for where this club needs to get back to.
So who's the man? Who's going to come in and take over? Overnight, Andoni Iraola, who we talked about extensively on the show yesterday, linked with the job. Do you think he
has a man crush
going to be tempted? I've got such a Iraola. I thought he should have got one of the big jobs here. I think he should have got one of the big jobs on the continent. And actually now, in theory, a very big job has opened up, even if it's maybe not the glamour it's been of years past.
I think there's always the allure to try to bring AC Milan back, right? And I think that would be really interesting with Iraola. And you guys know him better than I do, and you could certainly speak to that. I know he's been in negotiations with Crystal Palace, but once Milan comes calling, I think that could certainly open up the door. There are reports in Italy that Ibrahimovic, who is an advisor to ownership, is pushing for Xavi from Barcelona, the former Barcelona manager. He wants him. If I look within our league, coaches who I think are just doing a phenomenal job, that they don't get the credit that they deserve, that are playing a football that is adapted to where Europe is going. I love Vincenzo Italiano. He's more linked with the move to Napoli, but those are my sort of shouts. I like all of them. I think that is the direction that the club needs to go. But the first things first, I think, is that Milan as a whole needs to identify what is the type of football that we want to do, who is a sporting director that will bring in the players that's adapted not just towards one manager, because this is the problem. They keep switching managers. They go from Pioli to Conceição to Fonseca to Allegri. Those are 4 different coaches who have different styles of play, and now you're buying players for one coach, and now you're losing value on these players. You're selling them at a loss. They need to have an identity of what they want to look at and sign players, and then the coach can come and he can make his tweak on the team.
By the way, I'm not trusting anything Zlatan Ibrahimovic says. He's trying to buy Morecambe FC with Tyson Fury. Anything that's going on with that man right now, I think probably the Xavi thing should be avoided on that basis alone. Listen, it wasn't just in Milan where we had some final day drama. What about in Turin? Wild.
They're another one who, I will say, whether they got Champions League football or whether they didn't get Champions League football, it was a failure of a season for Juventus. It's now been 5 years that I've been lucky enough to cover this league on CBS Sports, who has the rights in United States. We have not watched Juventus compete for a title. Do you realize how crazy that is, that Juventus is not even in the conversation to compete for a Serie A title? We went from a period where Juventus won 9 in a row, where winning the title was not even good enough. The fans wanted more. They wanted to go further in Champions League. Now they're being embarrassed in Champions League football year in and year out. And they've been skating on thin ice. And honestly, it feels like the club has gotten what they deserve. They're another one who has spent huge money. They spent $120 million on a midfield and got worse. They spent big money and didn't buy the right players. Luciano Spalletti was brought in, and it's hard to be upset at Luciano Spalletti, brought in November. If you look at his numbers, he was the only team that earned more points in that time frame was actually Inter, but it wasn't good enough. They ended up drawing 2-2 to Torino because they had a 45-minute kickoff delay, and they knew that they were going to be in Europa League football at the end of the day, but an absolute failure from a club level. They're another one who very soon are going to clean house. They brought in a new sporting director, Comolli, CEO of the team. He's going to have to be gone. I think they will keep Luciano Spalletti. They gave him a 2-year deal before he qualified for Champions League football because it looked like a certainty. They had it in their hands. You know where they threw it away? They threw it away losing at home to Fiorentina on the second to last match day, a team that had nothing to play for at home, and you have your coach Luciano Spalletti come out after the match and say, my players felt too much pressure from the moment. Too much pressure to play against Fiorentina at home. And your Juventus, serious question marks about a lot of the players in this squad.
With Milan and Juve, as we talk about them not living up to the expectations, these Italian giants, European giants, as much as we celebrate the underdogs and the parity, how much does Serie A suffer when these two clubs aren't performing to the capabilities that we expect?
So no one in the world would have predicted this. We all said maybe one of the two would miss out on Champions League football, which already would have been a disaster, would have been a nightmare. No one in the world thought Roma and Como on the final match day would have been the two that get Champions League football. And of course, I think that this is where my bias comes in, having grown up with this league. And I said to myself, there's no way that Juventus and Milan are going to miss out on Champions League football. But when you think about it, you think about the style of football that they're trying to play. You think about the decisions that they made. The other teams have been smarter. The other teams have made better decisions. The other teams are playing a football that is more adapt to where Europe is actually going. It's about taking risks. It's about being progressive. It's about not just scoring one goal and sitting back and waiting. And guess what? Unfortunately, again, I'm saying this as a lover of Serie A, Milan and Juventus have not represented us well in the last years, both getting knocked out to Dutch teams. Juventus conceding 7 goals to Galatasaray in the moment, so maybe they need to hit this rock bottom to realize where they actually need to go, where football is going, how it's changed, how it's progressed. That's an issue for Italy as a whole, missing out on their 3rd World Cup, but there are a lot of examples of teams, coaches, and organizations that are starting to do things the right way, and those are the ones that are rightly being rewarded with Champions League football.
When you consider that on top of all of this, we get the news Antonio Conte is going to leave Napoli just 12 months after winning Scudetto. Like, are we teed up now just for Inter Milan to say, well, it's our table to run next season? Or do you think any of these teams have the chance to jump up and actually push them for a title?
Interestingly enough, the one lucky thing about Serie A, because we had a bad year, the one lucky thing is that in the last 6 years, nobody's been able to go back-to-back. Mm-hmm. Nobody's been able to win the Scudetto consecutively. Every year it's proven that it's harder to retain that title than it is to win it once again, right? Napoli won it last year, the year before Inter, then Milan, then Napoli, then Milan, and then Inter, Juventus. So it's always been shaken up. Inter gives you the most guarantees because Christian Kiewel answered a lot of the questions and the doubts that we had. Inter as an organization, as a club, they're just so well run. They're not reliant on one player or one coach leaving them or anything. They're just well structured and they have this plug and play model that the entire group works. I'm not too sure to say that for sure they're going to do it. I actually think that Napoli could get even better without Antonio Conte there. And I know that sounds crazy to say because he is one of the best coaches in the world. But if you look at his track record, when he left Juventus, that team went on to create a winning cycle and went to 2 Champions League finals. When he left Inter, that team got even better and they went on to win, to compete and go to 2 Champions League finals as well. So sometimes when Conte leaves, he creates an incredible foundation. He brings a character to the squad. But then a lot of the players within the squad are really happy when he leaves and they have a little bit more freedom. And another coach could come in and tweak things, similar to what Allegri did at Juventus when he took over, and then Inzaghi did when he took over at Inter for his team. They evolve, they get even better. So I think that Napoli's not going to fall off a cliff. For me, they're not reliant on just Antonio Conte. They're another one that's well run, that has a good organization, and I think that there's a lot of really good players within this roster that they can be playing an even better brand of football.
We're talking about all the clubs that are doing things the wrong way, but let's focus in on the ones that are doing it the right way and innovating in the modern day in Europe. And
they're not the fun ones to talk about. The fun ones are to talk about the car crashes and the messes and the.
I can have a lot of fun in Como. I don't know about you, but Como, it's a very fascinating story because obviously the ownership group, and I mean when you look at their books, obviously financially, like they're taking on a huge toll with some of the players and decision making they're making, but. Making Champions League now, it feels like this all has to be worth it for everyone.
Hey, he took big risks. They've taken those risks, and boy, are they going to pay off.
I love how everyone in England loves the story of Como, by the way. Everyone that I talk to that's from England, they fall in love with it. It's amazing. They make me so proud. They make me proud because they've done things the right way. They have punched way above expectations. I looked at the betting odds and Opta's supercomputer before the season started just for fun. They had them in 11th place, just to give you context as to how incredible this achievement is. Again, no one thought they'd be this far in Champions League football, and everyone quotes that they're the richest owners in football, that they're richer than Manchester United and Liverpool and this and that. But they've spent $250 million in 3 years, absolutely, but they've invested well. They've spent smart. They've gotten really good buys. So for them to get to Europe for the first time, playing this beautiful brand of football, playing with hunger every single week, they don't change compared to their opponent. They're not scared to abide by their philosophy. And this is the most incredible part. There's a story of Fabregas when he got promoted with Como from Serie B to Serie A, where Fabio Capello had dinner with Fabregas, and he said, "Hey, Fabregas, Cesc, amazing what you did. You look great in Serie B, but now you're in Serie A. Now you have to defend. Now forget about this idea and this philosophy. It doesn't work in Italy." And he said, that was a moment where I knew I was onto something. He did not agree to that. He stuck by what he believed. He stuck by what he does better than anyone else. And guess what? Here's the best part. He proved that in Italy, you could play beautiful football, you could attack, and on paper, they had the best defense out of anyone in Serie A. Amazing. And what did they do? They pressed their opponent. They played high up. They tried to score that second goal. They were the highest pressing team in Europe after PSG and Bayern Munich. For me, Fabregas has changed the landscape of football in Italy, and I hope a lot of teams try to copy them.
There you go.
I don't want to dismiss Roma as well. Obviously, another huge Italian club that has gone through their own financial struggles. And how significant is it for them to return to Champions League?
They're another one. First time in 7 years, right? They did so much. They actually spent $800 million in those years to try to get back into Champions League football. Brought Jose Mourinho in. Gasperini in his first year gets them into Champions League football, and Gasperini has been a master. What he did at Atalanta, he's gotten, in his last 10 years, he's qualified 7 times to Champions League football, just to show you how incredible he is. But the knock on Gasperini was always, he can't do it at a big team. He can't do it under pressure. At Atalanta, they don't care if you win or you lose. You know, it's all upside. In Rome, man, every game you lose, there's pressure. It amounts. He had a huge falling out with Ranieri, with directors, with their sporting director Masada. Both of them got kicked out. Ownership stuck by Gasperini, and it's proved to be absolutely correct. And Daniel Malland was one of the only signings Gasperini was listened to. He was the one player that they signed that he wanted, and it proved to be decisive. He broke the record for most goals from a January signing ever in Serie A. Previously helped by Mario Balotelli with 12 goals. Malland scored 14. Just to show you where they are, they also adapted to the injuries that they had. There was a lot of players that were missing even in the final day. Ndika, Kone, Wesley, they still got their job done. Things are looking up for Roma, and I'm happy that they're back in Champions League football.
I'm happy too.
Marcos, you've been sensational. Thank you so much for all your time. I'm just going to ask one very short one at the end, because we've just had the news down that Jamie Vardy will not be extending his stay at Cremonese down in Serie B. There was some speculation that they stayed up, he'd stay for another year. From what you saw from him in Serie A this season, can he still go to a top European league and compete?
Oh man, it's been a joy to cover Jamie Vardy. I have to say, just of course we already know one of the best underdog stories in all sports, I would really say. And to see how he was embraced in Italy, the Cremonese fans absolutely loved him. Ironically enough, I was at Classic Football Shirts in New York, and they told me that they've sold out of all their Cremonese jerseys, all thanks to Jamie Vardy. And the Cremonese fans that I've met here can't believe it. They can't believe that people want to wear their badge. I certainly hope so. I don't know what the future holds for him. He played his part. He scored his goal. He actually scored in back-to-back games for the first time since 2024, so he at least ended on a high. It wasn't his fault. This Cremonese team, I think, was always destined to go back to Serie B, and I certainly hope that we get to see him in another top league, at least for a couple more years.
And if not in another top league, maybe League One, maybe to help Leicester back to the Championship. Who knows? There's some speculation of that today, I'm not going to lie. Marcos, brilliant stuff from you. Thank you so much for joining us. Sensational stuff from the great Marcos Messina. Expect to hear more from him from CBS, the Serie A correspondent, although no Italy in the World Cup, so maybe not as much as we would have heard from him this summer. I'd have had him on every other day quite happily. But
I love Marco. I always love talking to him and understanding Italian football. No one, as you can see from the passion he speaks with, that is one of my favorite people to talk to about Italian football, and just in general, just an unbelievable human being.
Love it. Up next, Ivan Bislic joins us from SofaScore. If you've been watching the show regularly, you'll know that I'm a nerd, and we're going to get nerdy.
Nerd!
That's up next here on talkSPORT.
The S Word with Will Gavin and Master Tesfacion from talkSPORT. talkSPORT presents the S Word. High energy exchanges, fiery fan reactions, and the biggest football debate. The S Word from talkSPORT.
Back with the S Word on talkSPORT. Fun show today. Been enjoying it. We had less of me and you, more great guests today. And sometimes some people would say that's a good thing.
I don't know. I mean, there was a whole lot of you yesterday.
I was big in my feelings and I had some thoughts.
Big gin.
Yeah, big gin. Sharing them across the world. Listen, we still got Felipe Cardenas joining us on the show. Colombia's roster announced for the World Cup, and also Lionel Messi. Just how impactful could the injury he picked up in MLS this past weekend be on his World Cup? But first, I'm a nerd, right? Everyone on the other side of the glass calls me a nerd. I get the Homer Simpson nerd meme blasted at me on a regular basis. Somebody mentioned, in fact, one of our guests earlier mentioned XG, and we weren't on screen at the time, and Master turned around and gave me the cheesiest grin of all time, as if I was going to, jump out of my seat and squeal that somebody had mentioned XG. But when the producer on the other side of the glass gave me an opportunity to talk nerdy, to talk analytics, to talk prediction models, obviously we jumped at the chance, and I'm delighted to say the co-founder of the brilliant Sofa Score joins us. Ivan Beslic is here. Ivan, how are you, sir?
Hello, and regards from the Europe, from the middle of the football. We are talking about the football, not about the soccer. And I need to emphasize that this Saturday is the final of the Champions League, and the Champions League final is here in our neighborhood in Budapest, and Zlatko and I will be there.
Yes, that's wonderful.
And hopefully you'll see Arsenal win. You know, some people say.
I believe that Arsenal will win after the penalties, because the final result will be 1-1.
Okay, so tell us, why is the prediction model coming up with that, Ivan? We'll get into...
Is that the prediction model? That's your prediction?
I need to know immediately. We'll get into what this is and what Sofa Score is for people who don't know, but why are we going 1-1? Why are we going penalties? Why are you putting this on my world?
Best guest of all time we've had.
So this is the Champions League final. Both of the teams are great teams, and I believe that the passion for the complete match will be huge. So the 1-1 will be a final result, and we need to wait the penalties.
All right. You've ruined it immediately, Ivan, because now he's just going to sit there glowing for the whole time. Look, for people who haven't heard of Sofa Score, please explain to the viewers what you guys do.
So we are a sports platform. We started as a live score 15 years ago, and in that time, the live score was enough for the football fans, and later we added the Sofa Score player ratings. We added a lot of additional features like attack momentum and other simple visualizations of the match. And now we are a platform with the biggest number of sport results. We have more than 2 million matches for many sports, and we are the biggest database right now, prepared for AI era.
Look, Ivan, I have to thank you, because I've been presenting radio but also doing live commentaries for many years, and Live Score previously and now Sofa Score were my go-tos to sound like I knew what I was talking about while I'm looking at a computer screen, not an actual game of football, or not the game of football I'm currently watching. So for many years you've helped me sound like I know what I'm talking about, which is honestly probably one of the hardest jobs you've had to do.
Oof, it's hard.
Oof is the exact right response.
Yeah. It's hard to collect all of this data for many leagues and many sports, especially now when the smartphone is the second screen. When you started, the market believed that the smartphones will become the main screen, that we'll watch the match in car or everywhere else on smartphones. But now we have smartphone as a second screen, and that is a great position for you, for us, and for every football lover.
So I got to ask, Sofa Score, a lot of people use it, obviously, and they're known for their prediction models, and we're 16 days away from the World Cup, and I need to know, What is SofaScore saying about the World Cup? Who is the favorite amongst your prediction models to win the World Cup?
So I need to be passionate also for the World Cup. This is the last World Cup for Luka Modric, and he won so many beautiful awards during his life. But I believe that is a perfect time for Luka Modric and for Croatia to win the next World Cup. And I believe that we'll repeat the win from some other World Cups against Germany. We won them during our first World Cup ever after the war, after the Croatia became a country. And we also won against England. So as you know, probably we won against Brazil. So we are prepared for this World Cup, and I believe that the Croatia will lift the trophy.
I mean,
you're facing off against England.
We are a nation who adore Luka Modric, probably only second to the Croatians. What he did in the Premier League, what he's done throughout Europe, but we also know what it is to face him. We've done it in a semi-final. We've done it in group stages. We're doing it again on the 17th of June. So, Ivan, I'm not sure I can handle you saying you're going to win the whole World Cup. I was going to ask you what you thought was going to happen on the 17th of June, but I feel like you might be a little bit bias in your prediction. I was expecting pure analytics, a pure prediction model. I thought you were going to give me numbers and facts, and instead you're talking about passion and desire. And I don't know. I'm scared that Croatia is our opening game. I'm concerned about that. I'm not going to lie.
We are so close to the World Cup, so we need to put the numbers somewhere else. And I'm talking right now as a pure Croatian, and I hope so that the World Cup will be great.
I must ask, though, as a Croatian, again, a country that's been independent since 1991, going on 35 years right now, what does it mean having this generation represent Croatia, not just for your people, but internationally, for people to recognize the beauty of Croatian and Croatian people?
So I heard before Mr. Messina, we worked with him for SofaScore award show, and his passion about football, he's really passionate for the sport also. And I believe that Croatia has something unique. We have a beautiful coastline, beautiful islands, and we have a really good sportsmen in many sports. And I believe that the beauty of World Cup is we can see so many different players, so many different countries from many continents, and we'll hear so many different national songs, including the U.S. national song for the opening match. And I believe that is the best time to be in this business.
Ivan, last one from me, just from a SofaScore perspective. You talked about the mobile phone being the second screen. You talked about the challenge of that and how big your website is and how kind of much data you pull into it. How do you find the possibility of a situation like you see what Prime Sports are doing with Prime Vision, with what they do with the NFL as well? How do you integrate more? How do you make sure that you are part of the entire viewing experience?
So we believe that SofaScore as a second screen is to give additional information for users, and we are trying to integrate with many different competitions, and we are offering visualizations for different sports, and you as a sports fan, you can see better and you can understand better what is going on the field. Because if you have live stream, then the camera is always on Leo Messi or, as I mentioned, Luka Modric. And if you need to know what is happening for all 11 players, then you can follow SofaScore to see what is happening for all of them. And I see that your next topic is Leo Messi. I need to add that Leo Messi is definitely, for past years, the best football player in terms of SofaScore player rating. The maximum number is number 10, but in our system, he sometimes received the biggest number than 10. We need to squeeze it down under to 10.
Amazing. Look, Ivan, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good
People
luck
want to
to
find
Croatia.
out more, head to SofaScore.com.
Thank you.
I wish you the best of luck after your opening game of the World Cup. You lose the first one, and then you can go as far as you want until you meet England again. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate your time. The great Ivan Bersic from the great SofaScore. Well worth checking out the fine work they do. I was going to sit here and chat to you about Julian Alvarez, but I forgot we got Felipe Cardenas next, and he is sensational and can cover so many topics.
Friend of the show. And he also has to talk about Colombia's World Cup roster, which was announced yesterday, and I'm sure he has some thoughts.
So let's pull an audible. Let's break a little early. Let's get a Felipe early.
I don't know if the British people love the word audible here.
Yeah, it's going to happen. What would we even call it? Let's
a pivot. I don't know. I don't know what you guys say.
I'm calling an audible. That's what it is. Felipe Cardenas joining us up next.
Bringing all the biggest football debates stateside. The S Word from talkSPORT. talkSPORT presents The S Word. Listen again and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on the talkSPORT USA YouTube channel.
There, you're back with the S Word. Will Gavin, Master Tez Fatsian, and my water bottle, which is now on the floor. Thank you very much for moving that, Master.
The ultimate professional.
True. Yeah, it would have been really, really smooth if I hadn't then immediately mentioned it. But we're a YouTube show. We're live on camera. People saw it.
I'm just glad I didn't bang it against the table or the chair.
It makes a great noise.
It does not.
It's like the Undertaker's turning up.
It does. Yes. The dead man walking. Maybe that's England.
Maybe
that's America.
Right, okay, good. You can get in touch with us on the the show on all those fancy ways you can do it over there. So that's out on WhatsApp, +44 03717223344. You can get us on Instagram and on X as well. And if you get in touch with us on Instagram, DMs are open. Drop us a line. We can get you on the show. We love getting fan interactions. We love getting callers in as well. Or just get on YouTube, drop a comment, just like Geordie Dan has. He was watching our conversation with Jack Cunningham from earlier in the show, which you'll be able to watch back in full on the S Word YouTube channel shortly after the show. And he says, I'm not confident next season with Eddie Howe as manager. I think there's a lot of Geordies feeling that way.
I mean, hasn't the story been on Eddie Howe? There's always a ceiling. Has Newcastle reached their ceiling with Eddie Howe? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how quickly maybe they pull the trigger next year. How much of a leash he has. Time will tell, but big summer for Newcastle.
Coming up on the show tomorrow, we're going to go hard on the USA.
How hard?
America Day. We've got a fantastic guest already joining the show. One of the best soccer journalists covering the sport in the US.
Tom Bogert. Just locked him in. He'll be on tomorrow.
Because the US men's national team will announce their squad later today. We have had the leak already. We've seen what we suspect the squad will be. There's been a lot of conversations about emails and everything else. I'm hoping we're going to find out that Colombia at least let down the players who missed out on their squad in a more compassionate way, let's say, as we are joined by our next guest, the brilliant Felipe Cardenas, who is now our most regular guest on the show.
Hey.
Felipe, how are you doing? Numero uno.
I love that. I did not know that.
Yes.
I am flattered and honored. Nope. And don't let anyone be that guy. It's me. I'll take the mantle.
He complimented Marco Messina's eyes, but I'm.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong.
Unfortunately, you did not do the same with Felipe.
We've got some dreamy men on the show today. That's all I'm saying.
Fantastic.
That's all I'm saying.
For 9:40 in the morning, you look wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes.
As both of you do.
Stop it. We were waiting. We were waiting
it's
for
sweaty
it.
and hot over here. It doesn't hit the same.
Listen, we're going to talk about Leo Messi coming up shortly. Injury suffered in the MLS this weekend. The collective nation of Argentina, and let's be honest, the world round drew their breath. But first of all, Colombia, having missed out on 2022, have announced their squad for the 2026 World Cup. As a proud Colombian, how excited are you for this upcoming tournament?
I'm excited. I think what's funny about Colombia is that when leading up to the announcement yesterday of the 26-man squad, suddenly, like right afterwards, Colombians just fall into that trap of like, are we good enough? Are these the right players? Like, is this team ready to take on the world? I've said it on the show before. I think Colombia is a solid squad. They have a group that is manageable, and from looking at the 26-man squad, no real surprises. Honestly, I think one of the bigger surprises for like a wider audience, I thought Jerson Mosquera, the central defender for Wolves, is a bit of a snub. He's a good player. I saw him live when Colombia beat Argentina in a World Cup qualifier in Barranquilla. He scored a goal off a corner. He's a very good player, but he's been left off. Rafael Santos Borré, a former River Plate striker who now plays in Brazil for Internacional. He's like a player that the fans just love because of his work rate. He works really hard. He loves the country, loves the crest. He has been left off. And to answer your question, Nestor Lorenzo specifically mentioned Rafael Santos Borré, saying, I called him. It was a very difficult phone call. So he didn't send an email. He called the players and told them if they're in or if they're out.
Just a lot more class over there in Colombia than we have here in America, unfortunately. And you mentioned there wasn't too many surprises, but I guess probably for the broader American in Premier League fan, not seeing John Duran on this roster, especially when you see England's Ivan Toney, despite going to Saudi as well, making the roster. What has gone on? What's gone wrong with John Duran since he left the Premier League, and why is he not on this roster?
Yeah, it's been a topic of conversation. Both John Duran and Yasser Asprilla, the young player who spent time at Watford and now is in Spain, and he spent some time in Girona. Now he's in Galatasaray. Those two players have the same agent. This is just like a side story, but the same agent who a lot of people point to as being the man that has just really taken their careers in the wrong direction. And John Duran, I think, is the typical case here, where he's a young player, a lot of talent, and last year, in coming out of the Copa America and through the qualifiers in 2025, there was talk that he would be the starting number 9 for Colombia at the World Cup, and now he's nowhere near that 26-man squad. And the topic of John Duran really it's a concerning one, because people look at the talent and they say this is a player that can play at the highest level. He's shown it that he can do, that he can score goals in Europe, can score goals in the Premier League, and there's just something about his mentality that doesn't allow him to sustain a solid level of professionalism at the club level, jumping around from club to club, apparently looking like he's chasing the bag and just trying to be at the right place with the salaries highest. And Nestor Lorenzo said, during when he announced his 55 man squad, when Duran was on it, that he spoke to him, he follows him, he's tracking him, he knows that he left Zenit, he left the club Zenit based on personal reasons. And Nestor Lorenzo said, well, as soon as we knew that, we reached out to make sure he didn't need anything. But John Duran then immediately flew to Colombia, flew to Medellin, because that's where the national team was having their first camp, and just stayed there training on his own, waiting for the phone call that never came. So I think John Duran is just, right now, he looks like one of those cases of player with so much potential, could have been his World Cup, could have been one of those young players, and now you're not even sure what his international career is.
Let me ask you what the expectations are, because you've got your talisman, you've got your Luis Diaz's, who we were at Union Berlin to see him score a wonderful goal earlier this year. Brilliant season for Bayern. James Rodriguez plays his football there in North America, and obviously it's known worldwide. Yeah, does still kind of. Is there an expectation? Is it get out of the group? Is it win a knockout game? Like, where do Colombia feel they need to get for this to be a successful World Cup?
It's getting back to the quarterfinals like they were. That's where they were in 2014. That was a historic run for Colombia. They'd never been to a quarterfinal. Obviously, we know what happened in 2014. James Rodriguez, just an incredible performance. And remember, he essentially replaced not replaced positionally, but Radamel Falcao tore his ACL a few months before that World Cup, like 6 months before the World Cup, and suddenly Colombia lost their star before the 2014 World Cup, and James then just took over. So that is the expectation. Now, this team, it's different than 2014 because the 2026 team is a team that has been together through a lot. Many of these players were on the qualifying team that did not make the 2022 World Cup, and then they came together and made a nice run during the Copa America in 2024. So the expectation is that this is a team that is together with a staff, a coaching staff, Nestor Lorenzo, who was part of Jose Peckerman's staff in 2014, 2018. So he understands the philosophy and the culture of Colombian football. Remember, Jose Peckerman, one of the things that he did was just really focus on the mentality of these players, letting them believe that they can play at the highest level. And that is something that Nestor Lorenzo has continued in terms of his approach to the mentality side of the team. I like the team. I've said it before. I think it's a solid team. Now, can they beat the greats? Can they win a group that Portugal's in? Can they win that game? Can they get to the game in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium against Portugal on June 27th and win the group? That is the big question, because whoever wins that group is going to have an easier path in the second round. You finish second in Group K, where Colombia and Portugal are all, and you're going to end up on the other side of the bracket with Spain, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. So right now, that's a bit of the concern for Colombia. If they don't win the group, they're going to be I think they're going to have a tough time in that knockout round.
While those are the concerns for Colombia, there are other concerns in Argentina as MLS goes on a 6-week World Cup break. The news that Lionel Messi left holding his hamstring, I believe it is, leaving early in Inter Miami's match. What is the latest on Messi's status, and will this at all impact his availability for the World Cup?
Well, we don't know yet regarding the availability. I think what Inter Miami has said now officially is that they've categorized this as muscle fatigue. And when I saw that, I said, wow, there probably isn't a player in the world that is more fatigued than Lionel Messi, because that is what both the Argentine national team and Inter Miami tend to say anytime his hamstring flares up. Now, I say that because the right hamstring for Lionel Messi has been an issue when he was at his peak at Barcelona. That was the one injury that kept coming back, that kept recurring. So it's not a new thing. And since his coming to MLS in 2023, it's once again been a yearly problem for Lionel Messi. So, when they come out and say it's muscle fatigue, I think it's a way of saying we're not going to tell you exactly what it is. That could be a strain. There's been times with Inter Miami where the manager has said he's just tired, he's fatigued, he felt something. And then when he gets to the Argentine camp, they actually do a scan and it's a strain or, something a little bit more official, right? So I don't think it's a big concern in Argentina. The chatter is like, we want to know what officially the injury is, because how much is this team going to rely on Lionel Messi is the big question. And if you've watched Argentina over the last few years, especially Copa America is the big showcase that the world watched. Argentina sometimes looks better without him. They look faster. They're more direct. But he's still Lionel Messi. He's still the captain. He's still the idol within that dressing room. And I think this World Cup is going to be. It's going to be like there's going to be a before and after. Can he sustain this legacy coming out of 2022 where he won the World Cup, or does 2026 look like a disappointment in a tournament where perhaps he shouldn't have played? Coming in injured certainly is not a great start.
What is your feeling on how they should utilise him? Is he off the bench? Is he leading I went a bit Sean Dyche there, didn't I? Is it an off the bench job? Is it do you start him in the first group stage game, see where he is health wise? Because the problem with those kind of niggling injuries, things like the hamstring, is that, as we know, it might clear up by game one, but we're going to have the heat, we're going to have the travel, we're going to have everything else that goes along with it. And those things could be something that continue all the way through the tournament.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if Lionel Messi, maybe not the first game. I think they're going to want him to be there. It's the first match of the World Cup, the defending champions. You want to see your captain. You want to see Messi out on the pitch. I think the goal will be to get him in a place where he can play in that first match. Now, leading up to the 2026 World Cup, in between Copa America and 2026, this World Cup, Messi began to take himself out of games, asking for a sub, not because he was injured or anything. He would just be like, I'll take a sub. And it was this huge moment in Argentina where, like, wait a minute, he's actually taking himself out of the game. Remember, this is a player who was notoriously would get upset if a coach ever took him out of the game. There's a famous moment with Pochettino at PSG where he gave him the death stare after he took him off a game. And now Messi, I think, is more open to doing that. You're seeing Lamine Yamal, Spain essentially are announcing he's not going to play in the first two games. So I think Messi may not, I don't know if he'll sit out, but I think there probably is going to be a plan, to your point, with the heat, the travel, and the number of games that you have to play at this World Cup to get to a semifinal and a final, where you may be wanting to rest players. And I guarantee there will be a plan for Messi to get rest wherever he can get it.
I mean, who knows, Felipe? His hamstring could clear up like Will's voice did as he kept talking. You just never know,
it's just fatigue. It's just fatigue.
He's having a little fatigue.
It's fatigue of being sat next to this guy 5 days a week.
It's a fact.
4 weeks in, thank you.
We have the 6-week break with MLS. I do want to touch on what's gone on so far during the MLS season. Some teams playing 14, some teams playing 15 matches. As we take a look at the Eastern and Western Conference, Nashville currently atop the Western Conference, Inter Miami second, Chicago they're in third. In the Western Conference, Vancouver, San Jose, and Real Salt Lake. What have been probably the biggest surprise and biggest story so far in MLS?
Let's see. I think when you rattle off the teams that are at the top of both conferences, you can see a continuation from last season. Nashville, I think they showed that they have the team that's capable of playing different ways and beating different opponents through in MLS. I chose this is my hot take, because I had them finishing in last place last year, and they did not do that, so I looked really bad. But now, coming out in 26, I'm like, all right, fine. I'm going to reverse my prediction and have Nashville win MLS Cup. And they're proving that they can do that. I think Nashville is a good team. Vancouver, again, this is a team that was in the MLS Cup, final against Inter Miami. Once again, proving that this is a team that, despite the distractions and whether or not they're going to move from Vancouver, is there a new ownership group? There's a billionaire group that wants to move that team to Las Vegas. Is that going to happen? Is it a big distraction? Meanwhile, Vancouver continues to look like one of the top teams in MLS. So I think Vancouver is certainly one of the bigger stories of the season. Like, are they going to stay in Canada? That is a big story. And then on the other side, you didn't mention the Union, but the Philadelphia Union at one time had not won a game in 7 matches. And this is a team that was the Supporters Shield winner last year, and so they've struggled. And then obviously Inter Miami. We always talk about Inter Miami. Guillermo Ojos, who has known Messi since his teenage days in Barcelona. found his way to the head coaching job in Inter Miami after Mascherano was, resigned out of the blue. And so now Guillermo Hoyos is another loyal, Messi guy who's leading this team, and they just keep leaking goals, but they win games 6-4, 6-5, 3-2, 4-3. It's just like a weird team that can score in bunches but can't defend. So I think one of the stories is, can Inter Miami sustain that and actually get to another MLS Cup final? And what will Messi's role be after the World Cup?
At a crazy one, 6-4 against Philadelphia right before the break in the match in which, of course, Lionel Messi got injured. And one last question before we go. A lot of young talent in MLS, of course, from South America, from North America. Give me one player that's going to be a part of this World Cup that you're excited to see how they do on this international stage.
From MLS?
Yes.
Oh gosh, who's going to be on? Well, I wish I could talk. Can we just talk about Xavier Gozo? I wish I could talk about him. Again, we think we know the U.S. men's squad, right? The 26-man squad. It did not include Xavier Gozo, the right winger, the 19-year-old right winger from Real Salt Lake. I think if he's not on this team, which we expect him not to be based on the reports, I think it's a huge miss. It's a disappointment because this U.S. team, let's just be honest, they're not the most likable team. That's just a fact, okay? There are fans here that aren't sure, do I believe in this team? Do they convince me? And sometimes youth and innocence and fearlessness can really change a team, and it can also bring the fan base together when they see these young players on the squad. So I think Xavier Gozo, who has been one of the best young players in MLS, and I think an all-star caliber player at 19, missing out on this World Cup is a shame, because it would have been great to see that type of player come on and potentially help the United States on a home soil World Cup.
We started the show by bashing the U.S., and you know what? Why not end on that note?
Brilliant stuff.
Trust me, you don't have to apologize for anything. I was the one doing all the ranting for the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think I got a word in edgeways, basically, which is a rarity in life, even when my voice sounds like this. Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much, Felipe, as always. And you will continue to be our most regular guest, don't you worry.
Yes, thank you.
Felipe Cardenas, the excellent South American football expert, talking Colombia, talking Lionel Messi, as well as we get wrapped up towards the
it wasn't
end
just me
of the show today. No, and
the vibes are bad in America right now.
Listen,
for various reasons.
The vibes around the World Cup, and you can start to feel it. The end of the domestic season across Europe. You've got these 2 European finals to go, but squads being announced left, right, and centre. People starting to get hyped about the pre-games. People starting to get hyped about. We're hearing what the rules are going to be. I think that World Cup fever is just starting to bubble, just starting to come to the fore. But with that, the pressure, the cauldron of hosting a home World Cup. And I just think the United States might be feeling that little bit of that pressure.
I don't know if it's a fever, an illness, or maybe just a clumsiness like you just dropping the phone right now.
I nearly stalled out. I slid it down my leg to the floor because I felt it going.
Yeah, you didn't catch it. Just like I don't think America's going to catch this moment. Hate to end on a bad note, but hey, Felipe was great, and we're going to have a great day tomorrow. We're going to have a great day
tomorrow.
Beam of positivity may make a breakout again.
Hey! Keep heading to the S Word on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Everywhere you get your talkSPORT content. We'll be back tomorrow with a big America Day.
Peace.
America! The daily deep dive into the world of football. The S Word from talkSPORT.